Hello and welcome into BTN's Take 10 podcast. This is Alex Roux of BTN.com, and it's a very special week. It's Big Ten Tournament week, and to get you ready for all those festivities, we have sort of a special edition episode here today in the Take 10 podcast. Definitely aligns with the Big Ten Tournament, and although there's not a whole lot of current Big Ten hoops talk, we do get you set for the tournament with some historical Big Ten hoops talk, and we discuss a new book that's coming out that is being promoted alongside the Big Ten Tournament this week. So if you were at the games, we'll talk about how you can connect with this book that we're about to discuss here on the show. And the book is written by Ed Sherman. He's a longtime Chicago sports media figure, a longtime writer for the Chicago Tribune, and he is writing a official history of the Big Ten book. The book is called This Is Big, How the Big Ten Set the Standard in College Sports. And there's a promo for the book, a piece running in the Big Ten Tournament official program that kind of details the history of Big Ten basketball. Ed wrote it. Ed wrote the book, and it's kind of a precursor to the official release of the book this upcoming fall. So Ed gets into where to find the book, how to pre-order it if you want, and we talk plenty of Big Ten hoops history as we lead into the upcoming Big Ten Tournament this week here in Chicago. So, cool episode coming up. We do have another segment after Ed's interview. Colleen Degnan, our producer, is back with another Coll For The Culture segment where we talk sports and pop culture. We also talk a good amount of Chicago local tourist reviews, recommendations, and things to do if you're coming into town or attending the Big Ten Tournament this week. So, really fun pair of discussions coming up here. We've got Ed up first, like I said, followed by Colleen, and both go about a half hour. So the next hour or so, lock it in, and it should be a good time. All right, start with Ed Sherman. As I said in the intro, longtime Chicago sports media figure, longtime writer, and he's an author of an upcoming book as well. And Ed will tell us all about it in just a moment. That interview starts right now. Very pleased to be joined by Ed Sherman. He's a longtime fixture in the Chicago sports media landscape, a longtime sportswriter for the Chicago Tribune. Does radio, he's an author, and you can follow him on Twitter at _Sherman_report. Mr. Sherman, how are you?
Great. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. So in that intro, did I leave any gigs out, first of all? Because you've got a full plate when it comes to the sports media obligations, so let me know.
Yeah, I'm pretty much doing sports media. I'm pretty much pretty much concentrating on this book that I'm doing on the Big Ten. That's kind of taken up pretty much all of my time these days. Yeah, I did include author in that intro, and like you said, you've been working on a book that will serve as the official history of the Big Ten, titled This Is Big, How the Big Ten Set the Standard in College Sports. So can you elaborate on the impetus for this book and when it comes out and everything Big Ten fans need to know about it? Yeah, so, it's going to come out, it's going to be first off, it's going to be an official history book of the Big Ten. I'm working with the conference and kind of trying to document 120 plus years of history dating back to 1895 of the Big Ten, and through stories and a lot of pictures. It's going to be a coffee table style book, and so it's been a lot of fun. There's a lot of great stories, a lot of great behind the scenes type stories, a lot of history. Even I thought I knew a lot about the Big Ten, having been around it for 40 years, and I'm just stunned every day that there's other things that I am learning for the first time. And so, to coincide with the Big Ten basketball tournament, we're going to do a pre-sale. So if people want to get their orders in early for a special discounted price, they can go to big10book.com and get more information about the book. And then if they want, they can do a pre-sale order, and you'll be able to get your copy. We're hoping it's planned to come out next fall. Awesome. Yeah, and you mentioned coinciding with the Big Ten tournament, which is back in Chicago after a 3-year absence. Fans will be able to get a taste kind of what your book will kind of entail, because you wrote a piece in the official program for that tournament coming up here in Chicago, and it includes a bunch of examples of how the conference was innovative and groundbreaking. It's a list kind of a Big Ten first and how they led the way. So how did this piece come about, and how closely does this Big Ten first writing resemble the content that'll be in your book? Well, I think it came about because Jason Yellen of the Big Ten office kind of was thought, hey, this would be a great idea to promote the book, let people know that the book's coming out, the Big Ten fans who are going to be at the tournament, that the book is going to be coming out in the fall. And, and I was he asked me to write a piece, and I was thinking about it, and I kind of started thinking about all these firsts that the Big Ten has either been a part of or interesting things that have kind of happened in the conference at the first time that these happened. And so that was kind of just like a natural angle to do it. And I would say it's going to be kind of similar to some of the things that are in the book. I'm going to have timeline, a pretty comprehensive timeline of the Big Ten, and you're talking again about 120 years, and also looking at iconic athletes such as, from the basketball perspective, Magic Johnson and Jerry Lucas, two of the great college basketball players of all time period, and Rick Mound. It was kind of hard to make the cut and who you're going to include in that section. So many great athletes, so many great players. So yeah, I mean, it was the format. I mean, it's going to be similar. It's going to be the story is going to be an example of the kind of information that you're going to be able to get in the book.
Yeah, and I actually got to look at that piece that you included in the program. And one thing I didn't know that you included right off the top is that the first 5-on-5 college basketball game of all time took place between Iowa and the University of Chicago, and that was all the way back in the 1890s. Like, I knew that the history behind Rutgers and college football taking place all the way back 150 years ago, but I did not know that about the first college basketball 5-on-5 game taking place. So how did you discover that, and what were some of the details of that game?
Yeah, so, I don't know that I discovered that. I mean, that's kind of out there, but there's something, again, that I didn't know, and you research and you see, hey, wow, this is interesting. January 18th, 1896, a crowd of 400 people. So, Iowa hosts the University of Chicago. University of Chicago was coached by Amos Alonzo Stagg, who was the legendary football coach, but back then they did everything.
Yeah.
And actually, the Iowa coach was H.F. Kallenberg, and they were graduate students together at Springfield, Massachusetts College, where James Naismith invented the game. And there was at the time, the early versions had as many as 9 players a side, and Kallenberg felt that for very congested, kind of unattractive basketball, and Kallenberg, came up with this 5-on-5. Let's make it more fun, spread out the court, and Stagg agreed. Before the game, they explained the new rules to the fans, and that was the first college game and 5-on-5 game. The Chicago team won in a very exciting, tight 13-12 victory. Bruins made 10 free throws and 3 field goals, each counting as 1 point. And I thought it was kind of interesting. A couple things kind of interesting. Regardless of who was fouled, regardless of who was fouled, the shot could be taken by someone who was a better shooter. The fans, didn't matter home court advantage. They went crazy after each successful shot. I mean, here's my favorite thing. I found this after the game. There was another long-standing tradition began critics of officials. One local paper wrote, "Strict officiating was a source of intense dissatisfaction to the audience." So it began even back in 1896 and continues to today, complaining about the officials.
So you're saying all these tweets that I see, coming every day to the Big Ten Network account complaining about the officials, as if we control the officials, isn't a new phenomenon.
Right. It goes all the way back to 1896.
Well, also...
And I thought that was just really funny to me because they had no idea what they were watching, and they still were complaining about the officials.
That's hilarious. And one thing that you just mentioned that I thought was also pretty funny was, yeah, the score was 13-12, but they were kind of ahead of their time because now if you go to any playground and play, pick up basketball, we count by ones and twos. So that was, the first games were counted by ones.
Right. That's interesting. Yeah, that's for sure. So that was kind of where it all started, and it went from there.
Yeah, so kind of picking up on the early days of Big Ten basketball, the first in-conference game wasn't until about 10 years later. But what were you able to learn about what Big Ten basketball was like back in, really the Stone Age of the sport? What were the you kind of touched on the fans, the officials, but how did it gain popularity?
Well, I think it became. I think the styles evolved. I write in the piece that there's a coach at Wisconsin, Walter Doc Meanwell, who was took over in 1911, and prior to him taking over, players had been kind of mostly stationary on the court, and the passes were these long, looping passes. And meanwhile, taught this Wisconsin system that was based on short passes and open shots, and players were weaving and using pivots and screens. And so they kind of revolutionized the game, and not surprisingly, his team went 44-1 during his first 3 years on the job, and that approach kind of revolutionized the game. And he helped also lead the Badgers to 9 conference titles through 1929. So he's one of the early innovators. Like anything else, the game evolves, and the game starts attracting popularity. Again, there weren't many sports around at the time. It's basketball became popular in part because it's winter. People in the Midwest, they don't have much to do. You go see a basketball game inside, and you can be entertained. And I think that was a large part of the popularity. And these areas soon became hotbeds for college basketball.
Well, that's great that Wisconsin, even back going on 100 years now, has always been a system school. That's pretty good.
Right.
To this day, it keeps up. Ed, another one of the first that jumped out to me while reading the program was Rick Mount. I always knew he was a great scorer. You brought him up earlier. He scored 61 points in a game in 1970, averaged 35 points a game his senior year. This is, at least a decade before the three-point shot even existed. How does that happen in an era where there is no three-point shot? Did he take a huge volume of shots, or how did
I'm sure he did.
Like that?
Okay, he's considered kind of the rocket, they called him. He's considered the greatest shooter maybe in college basketball history. He was a gunner. He shot 61. He scored 61 points against Iowa, and Purdue sportswriter Mark Monteith went back and found the shot sheet for that game. And he counted 13 shots that would have been three-pointers in the modern game, meaning he would have scored 74 points. 74
Wow.
points in a college basketball game, in a Big Ten game. It's just crazy when you think about it. And he was upset because they lost. They lost 108 to 107, and he just kept saying, "We lost. It didn't matter to him." But that was the kind of player he was. You're talking about a guy who averaged over 30 points a game throughout his whole 3-year career since freshmen weren't eligible. Took Purdue to the finals in 1968. 1969. They lost to UCLA. Kind of were a victim of that UCLA run, but they beat a North Carolina team that included future Big Ten Commissioner Jim Delaney, and there's actually in the book you'll see a cover shot of Rick Mount on the Sporting News being covered by Jim Delaney. So that's kind of one of my favorite little items that we have in the book. So Rick Mount was just a great player, and he's one of these guys that really has stood the test of history. As kind of when you think about when people talk about great shooters in Big Ten history, his name's got to be number one on the list. On most lists, I can't imagine. I'm trying to think who else would be up there, but he was a gunner. He can get the ball in the basket.
Yeah, making that drive from Chicago to Indy, I always notice now that the Rick Mount highway sign. So certainly an icon to this day. And you mentioned some of the other icons, even in that Big Ten first list that you wrote, Magic Johnson, Jerry Lucas. Do you have any particular favorites when it comes to icons, either in basketball or football throughout history?
Well, my favorite icon probably is Niall Kinnick, the story of the Iowa host, the guy who won the Heisman Trophy. And a lot of people know the story, a lot of people don't. He was an exceptional student athlete with an emphasis on both. Who played for Iowa in the late 30s, 1939, and kind of came out of nowhere to really lead Iowa. Iowa had been a really down team for a while, and he just had an exceptional year both ways back then. Again, and he led Iowa. I think they only lost one game that year, and he got this national attention and wins the Heisman Trophy. And but he was also an exceptional. His grandfather was the governor of Iowa. He was a Phi Beta Kappa. He wins the Heisman Trophy, and he goes to New York, and this is right after World War II had broken out in 1939, and gives this speech about saying how fortunate he is to be battling on the gridiron and not on the battlefields of Europe, and that really kind of stirred a lot of, caught a lot of people, impressed a lot of people that he had the presence of mind to say that in a nationally broadcast radio speech from him accepting the Heisman Trophy. And he was one of these guys that, he did not want to play professional football. He wanted to go to law school, and he seemed one of these guys who seemed destined to be some sort of a national political figure. Hard to say if someone would be president of the United States. There's a lot, but I think that I think a lot of people thought he had that kind of makeup. He was a very profound guy, and unfortunately, he enlists in the Navy, I believe it was, and he's during the war, and he's doing a training mission in flight in plane during a training mission, and right off the shore of Venezuela in 1943, and there's an issue with the plane, and there was some talk that he could have landed the plane on the deck of the carrier, but that if he would have, he might have taken out a lot of other planes in doing so. So he crashed short of the carrier, and they never recovered his body. And so it's just a tragic loss. But it also kind of serves, I think he now serves as the symbol and this inspiration for student athletes. Obviously, the stadium is named after him, Kinnick Stadium. One thing I did not know, and maybe my favorite fact, I don't know if you know this, Alex, but before every Big Ten game since, I believe, 1962, there is a coin, and it's the Niall Kinnick coin. It's that when they flip the coin at a Big Ten game, football game, they're flipping a coin with his image on it. So really just a great, I did not know that, and to me that was maybe the favorite thing that I had learned, considering how many Big Ten games I'd been to and covered through the years, that I didn't know that every game begins with a coin flip of Niall Kinnick, and he's really an appropriate guy to have that honor.
Yeah, that is really cool, and I was just in Iowa City and stayed at the Graduate Hotel. I don't know if you've been to these Graduate Hotels, but they do them up with all the memorabilia of the school and the campus that it's located in. Niall Kinnick's image was everywhere in this hotel, and they did it in a pretty cool way. And I'm glad you mentioned the coin anecdote, because I'm sure there are plenty of things that you stumbled upon while researching this book and just throughout your career that you might not have known. Is there anything else that you discovered in your research that you didn't know before that jumps out?
Oh, I just think there's a lot of different things when you're talking about Fielding Yost and those great Michigan teams. Again, I knew about them, but when you're talking about in the early 1900s and kind of the dominance they had, when they would go through a whole season outscoring opponents 555 to 3. I mean, those kind of things stick out. And a chance to learn more about Doc Conselman, the great swimming coach at Indiana, who I knew was a great swimming coach. I didn't know that he pretty much revolutionized swimming with his techniques. I mean, in his the way, it's hard when you think about it. The guy really revolutionized modern swimming by introducing different training techniques, different ways of doing strokes, and so he was an interesting guy. I loved learning more about Dan Gable. Again, I knew a lot about the great wrestling coach at Iowa and kind of his the ridiculous string of national championships he won as wrestling coach at Iowa. And I knew there were things that I knew about. I knew of Dan Gable, of course. I knew of Doc Conselman, but I didn't know the detail that that you go and learn what made these guys great. I mean, one of the interesting things when it comes at the end of the 1990s, ESPN did the Sports Century series ranking the top 50 athletes of the 20th century, and 5 Big Ten athletes were in the top 33. I mean, that's an incredible number. I mean, I don't think any other conference has anything close to that. You're talking, I always remember Jack Nicklaus. You're talking Jesse Owens, Jack Nicklaus, Red Grange, Mark Spitz, and Magic Johnson. 5 in the top 33 came from the Big Ten. So those are 5 pretty good names right there, and those were Big Ten, And you mentioned Mark Spitz. I mean, his story was pretty interesting because he came to Indiana as a much heralded swimmer, but he needed to kind of quote unquote grow up and mature, and that happened to him in Indiana, and he went on to win 7 gold medals. And so a lot of that kind of stuff is in the book, and along with other things that people will see, hopefully will enjoy, and And we're also going to do a lot of We have got a lot of great photography thanks to the schools and the conference, and we're going to also try to tell the story of the Big Ten experience, what it's like through this great photography. As I said, it's going to be a coffee table style book, a lot of text, a lot of photos, and so, it's 120 plus years of the conference, and a lot to include. Jim Delaney's writing the forward for the book, and they've been great. They've been totally behind this project, and I couldn't have asked for anything more. So it's kind of exciting because we're kind of getting into the process of putting everything together now for it to be out for everyone in the fall.
Yeah, and I think that's the cool thing is that, even if you're a Big Ten expert and you think you know a ton about the league, and even if you do, there's going to be things that, deeper details that you might not have realized before, and, even you as the author experience that in your research. So definitely, even if you're an expert of the conference, something that will be definitely interesting to check out. Ed, I'm curious, what are your first Big Ten memories, kind of sticking with the theme of first, because I feel like every follower of the conference has that,
I think I got a few years on you, but I go back. I would say probably my first really initial memories was that Ohio State-Michigan game in 1969, the famous game where, Bo Schembechler upset Woody Hayes for the first, in that first meeting, and maybe arguably, I don't know if it's the greatest upset in Big Ten history, but it's right up there considering how strong that Michigan team was, that Ohio State team was. And I write about that in the book. That's kind of one of my pivotal moments in the book I call Big Impact, and I write about how in the book how that kind of set the tone for not only the 10-year war that followed, but also the identity of the Big Ten, and how it became the conference of Woody and Bo, and the conference of that these guys had such strong personalities, and you think about it, these guys have been gone for haven't coached in almost 30 years, and have been gone for a while too. Died a few years back, and yet when people kind of talk about when you think about the Big Ten, you ask them about the Big Ten, one of the first things they talk about is Woody and Bo, the conference of Woody and Bo. Even in an age when there's more wide open offenses and high scoring, and it's still the conference of Woody and Bo. So that was one of my first memories. And then I went to University of Illinois. I would say from that perspective, my favorite memory was a game in 1979 when Illinois was 14-0, and Magic Johnson, Michigan State came into Assembly Hall, and Eddie Johnson, who later became a good friend of mine, became a good friend of mine, hit a last-second shot to lead Illinois to a 57-55 victory. And I remember we were on winter break, so I wasn't at that game, but I remember going crazy in the house. I still remember how excited that was, and so that was a big, vivid memory for me. And so those two things stand out.
Yeah, I think that was really close, if not on the 40-year anniversary, or the 40-year anniversary this year was really close to that date when Illinois beat Michigan State again this year. So that was an interesting kind of coincidence. Ed, obviously the Big Ten's not afraid to be first and take some risks in that process. So alluding to a more recent example, the reason I'm sitting here talking to you right now is the innovation of BTN, the first conference network in college sports. And when it came out, there were a lot of skeptics. So you're a sports media expert. What did you think when you first heard the conference was pursuing and launching its own sports network going on 12 years ago now?
Well, I saw, and I write about this really comprehensively in the book. There's a really long section in the book about that, talking to Jim Delaney, talking to Mark Silverman, the first BTN president, and also talking to Dave Revson does a first-person piece. And so I talk about that. My immediate recollection was that if anyone, I was obviously skeptical, like most people. I thought if anyone could do it, though, the Big Ten could do it. My more immediate recollection was that they were involved in trying to get distribution, and Comcast, the large cable provider, was a big holdout. They did not want to put it on the Big Ten network on a basic tier. They wanted to put it on a sports tier for a service, which would have pretty much relegated the BTN to oblivion. And the Big Ten held out, and I remember, kind of writing and saying, getting on Comcast, saying that people are going to want this, that that it was going to be on, that you should put it on a basic it's just a matter of time why you holding out, because I think people are going to want this, and it should be on basic, and sure enough, it was on basic within a year, and the rest is kind of history. It's been wildly successful, both from a aesthetic standpoint and an exposure standpoint from the Big Ten, and also from an economic standpoint. I mean, it brings in, the combination of exposure and revenue is unmatched in college sports, so it's been a tremendous success.
Yeah, and for the sake of my career, I hope it stays that way. Ed, kind of close the loop before I let you go. I want to circle back and talk about the Big Ten basketball tournament, because it's interesting. With the Big Ten being first in so many things, the conference postseason play is not one of them, and there are two, big sports, football and basketball. The Big Ten's first basketball tournament was in '98. I believe the first championship game in football was in 2011. So why was the Big Ten one of the later adopters of in-conference postseason play?
Well, I think it goes back to so the Big Ten has been innovative and been first in a lot of things, but that also goes back to it's a pretty tradition-based conference, and I think there was a lot of resistance to the idea of having a postseason basketball tournament determine the champion when we played 18 games back then. Now it's 20 games this year for basketball. That the regular season should be determining the champion, should be the one who gets the top seed, gets to hold the trophy at the end of the year. And so I think there was a lot of tradition involved. I think there was also this idea of we don't want to keep having these athletes play more games. So there was, I think there was that resistance, and the Big Ten, it was probably slower to move in both than the other ones, but I think it just became really obvious that, hey, everyone else is doing this, and we should do it too, and take advantage of this opportunity to kind of showcase the conference, to give the student athletes, the players, an experience that they'll remember for a long time. I mean, you're going to have people in the United Center playing on the same court, regardless if very few of these guys are going to the NBA, but they will be able to say they play in the same court as Michael Jordan next week, at the Big Ten tournament. So it's exciting, and it's something that's become very much a part of the fabric of the Big Ten. For
sure, it's one of my favorite weeks of the year. Can't wait for the games to get underway. And once again, if you're going to the Big Ten tournament, keep an eye out for Ed's Big Ten first piece in the official program, and then on top of that, head to BigTenBook.com to pre-order This Is Big, How the Big Ten Set the Standard in College Sports. Ed, I really appreciate your time, and if there's anything else you'd like to share, go for it.
No, we're good. I'm just hoping, we have a great tournament, and hopefully people will just check out the website, and, I think this is going to be a unique book. There hasn't been this kind of a book on the Big Ten, and you're talking about a lot of history that affects a lot of teams, a lot of your favorite athletes, a lot of your favorite, regardless of what school you went to, there's going to be something for everyone in this book. So hope people will check it out.
All right, well, once again, I appreciate the sneak preview, and we will be looking forward to the release of the book. Thanks, Ed.
Thank you.
All right, thanks so much to Ed for joining me. Really appreciate him sharing some time and sharing his knowledge about Big Ten history and letting us know about when his official History of the Big Ten book is coming out and all the details that go along with that. So thank you, Ed. Now we'll kick it over to Colleen Degnan for our Coll For The Culture segment. If you haven't heard this show before, at least in recent weeks, Colleen is a regular. She comes on and talks sports and pop culture and kind of the intersection of entertainment and sports and just general banter that gets tossed back and forth. It's always a good time, especially if you're looking to take a discussion and take your listening habits outside of just straight Big Ten sports. Definitely stay tuned for our discussion coming up here in just a second. Talk a lot of Chicago area things to do with the Big Ten tournament coming up in town all week. Coming in town, you'll probably have time to check out the city, so get into that, get into some other pop culture talk as well, some current events, and I'll stop introing it and get right to it so you can hear it. It's our Coll For The Culture segment with Colleen Degnan. It starts right now. All right, we're back with another Coll For The Culture. Alex Roux here with Colleen Degnan. Colleen, how you doing? It's Friday. It's the end of the week, and we got an exciting week coming up. So, how are you feeling?
Hello, welcome. Well, I guess I'm getting welcomed on the show.
Yeah, welcome you in.
I'm good. I'm excited. We got a good week ahead of us.
And I'm crossing my fingers because last episode we had some chatter in the background. We're in our studio here, but apparently the soundproof is not soundproof enough because for listeners last week, we had our lovely colleagues in the next room chatting it up and unknowingly providing some white noise in our background. So fingers crossed this time that there's no disruption.
It's just the live energy of the office, you know?
Yeah, we can spin it into a positive that way. So, all right, it's a special day today, right? Colleen, I'm going to let you tell me more about it because I actually didn't know. Shows how tuned in I am with the daily national calendar. I've been kind of in a zone where I've just been going to sleep and waking up and grinding through these last few weeks of basketball season. So what's going on?
Well, today's Friday, which we're recording on, but you guys will all hear this Monday. So hopefully you'll have 3 days to celebrate that it was International Women's Day.
And that's
Friday,
today?
Friday the 8th.
Okay.
So
Happy International Women's Day.
Thank you. And it's a Women's Month, but today is the official day to kick it off. And something so cool that I saw, Steph Curry a few months ago, a young fan of his, Riley, wrote to him.
That's his daughter's name, too. Interesting.
Another
Riley, okay.
But this darling 9-year-old wrote to him complaining that she couldn't find his signature shoes in her girl's size.
I saw that.
And so he was completely captivated by her. And now she got to help design a female shoe that released today, the 8th, in honor of International Women's Day.
I saw that. Pretty cool. And actually, although I didn't have this circle on my calendar for today, I do remember a year ago I was in Madrid, Spain at the time. Not to brag, but I was there. And
world-class
and
travel, Alex Roux.
So I get into Madrid, and the trains are packed, like from the airport, like more packed than anything rush hour in Chicago going home on my commute. And I was like, what is going on? I could barely get my suitcase in. I was getting claustrophobic. And it turned out it was like the International Women's March in Madrid, and we just happened to be staying in the center of the city where the big march was going on. So I was welcomed to Spain for this worldwide holiday. So shout out to International Women's Day. I guess that was a year ago today. Thanks for bringing that to my attention.
Yeah, so definitely wanted to everyone go check out the shoes. They're a really cool purple color, and I'm pretty sure she and her family are getting hosted by Steph Curry at the Warriors game Friday night. So I'm sure she'll be sporting the new kicks.
Yeah, and shoes are so tied into NBA culture and basketball culture in general. So it's cool that a young lady got to design them, and we see it not just at the NBA level, but at the college level as well. And it ties into nicely with one of your favorite players, I know, Badger, Ethan Happ.
Saying farewell to Ethan Happ last night.
Who recently played his last game, and it ties in with him because he is known to give his giant, I assume size 15, 16 shoes.
It's literally double my foot.
Away to kids after pretty much every game, I think.
I think so, too.
Yeah. And I don't know if you had any farewell words for Ethan Happ. I know he's got some basketball left to play, but his last game at Kohl Center was Thursday night, and you guys got to send him off with a win.
It was great. Him and Iverson both had a really good game as two of our seniors. So hopefully it's going to lead them to end up with the 4th seed in the tournament. But we'll see.
Yeah, I know you want to get that Friday double bye locked up. We'll know by Monday when people listen to this. But they got one more game to try and clinch that Friday game. I think they're in good shape. So
I think they'll be. I just hope we control our own destiny. But it's just also so crazy, all of the senior nights happening. First of all, they've started, I feel like, a few weeks back.
Well, first of all, I liked Ethan Happ blowing kisses to his home crowd because we talked about earlier this year when he blew kisses to the barn at Minnesota. And so now he kind of flipped it, and it was now a gesture of endearment as opposed to taunting the barn crowd.
Class act guy.
He just likes blowing kisses, I guess.
He loves the love.
He's basically the human blowing kisses emoji. So. But in all seriousness, I like Ethan Happ. He's a cool dude. We've talked about it before, but interacting with him, he's one of the most down-to-earth and relatable personalities. He was easily able to slip into just a normal college kid kind of mode, and I like that, out of a true ambassador for the conference. So yeah, I mean, you mentioned that the senior nights have been going for what seems like a while now. It's true that they have, and I know firsthand because we've been amplifying these senior night celebrations on social media channels. Yeah, so been streaming them live on social media as often as possible, and been going out on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. Have you got a chance to watch any of them?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like you said, first of all, they've started like 3 weeks back and carried through. So, like, I don't know why there's been all of this.
Just the scheduling, how it goes. Like, Iowa's was a while ago, and it happens when it seems like a lot of teams play a lot of home games early on, and you're like, man, it seems like this team is always at home. And then it catches up with them at the end of the year when they all of a sudden don't have a home game for the last 2 weeks of the year, and their senior night's happening in February.
It's kind of cool, though. I feel like the discretion of what they do for each senior night is up to each university and each team.
Well, let me tell you, it definitely varies because I've now seen a bunch of these up close. And first of all, did you watch Wisconsin's last night?
Yes, I did.
Thanks for tuning in. And yeah, I've seen a bunch of these up close, and this is the first year that I've actually noticed how much it varies, like you said, between the schools, because some schools will kind of do the full gamut of things. Like, they'll have a video of all their highlights, a montage, and they'll have the sad music playing. Like, Iowa had the sad, what's the Zales commercial music?
That's a little too cliche for me.
Again?
1,000 Miles.
Yeah, exactly. So they have that.
I feel like we drop her a lot. In this
yeah, it's like the second time at least. So some schools will do it up. Some do it before and after.
Yeah.
Like, depends. Some do before and after.
And into halftime, too.
Yeah, Minnesota did. I don't know if we've seen the halftime ones yet, but Minnesota did before and after, and it worked out really well because they stormed the court, and everyone was out in the court when their seniors were giving their speeches. And some schools will do, like Wisconsin last night was like a 3-minute thing. They basically had the players come out with their little jerseys in the frames and hold them up, and that was it. And then Indiana is one that will make it a big production. They always do it afterwards, infamously. I guess, I don't know. That infamous is kind of a negative connotation, but they'll always do it after. I guess it is negative sometimes when they lose and then people don't stay. So that's always a gamble.
I don't know if I would like it afterwards.
It's a big payout because, if you have a big win, like the Minnesota one.
True.
That's why I kind of like the before and after,
The both?
Yeah. But Indiana's goes on for a long time because the seniors make long speeches. Purdue did it the same way. But I don't know. What would you prefer? We've been seniors in college, so
True.
We did not get senior.
Can I go back to senior high school night? Does that count? Can we go back that far?
I guess you were an athlete.
I was definitely an athlete.
What did you play?
I was volleyball and cross country my senior year.
Did you have senior days?
Yes. I was the only senior on the volleyball team my senior year, so it was pretty much Colleen night.
My only sport I played senior year was basketball, and we were all seniors. I think we were 10.
See, that's a lot of sharing.
10 of us were seniors. Yeah, there was not much spotlight to go around.
I liked the quick, in general, regardless what sport or what you're doing, I think I'd want it before, more hype, get the crowd going, get the team going, because then you're just kind of motivated. If it's too sad, then you're going to just be totally deflated.
Where do you fall on speeches?
How long or
no? Would you want to give a speech?
Not before. I want that separate.
But do you want one at all?
Yeah, but give me a nice dinner, a nice cocktail party.
For as an athlete still?
Yes.
Okay. Well, there's a banquet. They still have banquets.
Right. I know, but that can still be something its own separate entity. Maybe the night before your senior night.
Okay.
You have a nice little get together with the squad.
Okay.
But going into the game, the crowd doesn't want to see everybody crying. That's just a lot of emotion. I don't want to see the vignette.
I will say for us social content sharers, we love the speeches because usually there's some sort of goofy moment or
any
joke
funny moment. That's fine.
Or if the tears, we love tears.
But not before the game.
If it bleeds, it leads. If it cries, it flies. That's. I just made that up, but
that's catchy.
That honestly is true for us.
Big crier, big flyer.
And then once in a blue moon, you'll get the ultra popular and viral moment. Like a couple years ago, we mentioned Indiana's post game one, where a guy like Colin Hartman, who was on Indiana a few years ago, proposed to his girlfriend during the senior day ceremony.
See, that's unfair.
And her friends were crying, and the families were all out there, and the players were all out there, and it's, I think to this day, our most viewed YouTube video.
Did they lose?
I think they won.
See,
pretty sure.
As a coach, I don't think I would let that happen.
I mean,
that's just
you're going to tell somebody no, they can't propose?
Yes, if I was the coach of the team, I would say that's not allowed.
Good luck with that. But anyway, it's to this day one of our most viral moments. So as kind of repetitive as senior day can get, it probably has like the most potential out of anything that is not related to the actual game itself.
I totally agree. And as a watcher, yeah, give me all the emotion, let me cry. As a player, absolutely not. Make it short, quick.
For everyone that's like viral or super emotional or one that just comes together perfectly, there's 5 or 6 that just fly by in an instant. There's like half full crowd and it just doesn't, you know, you feel kind of bad for the people that don't get the recognition or the moment. But, you know, it's not everyone can, I guess not every college player gets the equal experience, and not every college is equally. So.
That's totally true.
Yeah,
fair point. But
interesting.
Congrats to all the seniors.
Yeah, shout out to the seniors. And they'll obviously have plenty of, time left to make their mark here in the Big Ten tournament coming up. Every team has a shot, as we say this year. I like that branding this year. We talked about it, but it's smart because it kind of lights that little flame in every sports fan that,
I love it.
It's not like college football where if you lose, first couple weeks, then you're out of the running.
Right.
You still have a chance to run the table.
Oh, it's so emotional. My heart rate is already rising.
Also, I'm already, if you can't tell, I'm looking a little tired right now. So I'm already dreading this weekend and the setting the clocks back.
No, we spring them forward.
Spring forward.
It's daylight saving.
Daylight saving. Okay, I'm dreading it. It's one of the worst.
Really?
It's one of the worst nights of the year.
Absolutely disagree. We're about to get more sunlight for longer in the day.
Okay, first of all, that's true. It's great. Like the payoff is great, but it's dark in the morning. Super dark. You don't wake up
before 10 any day.
True, but I'm gonna start half soon. I can't even talk. I'm so tired. You wake up at 7:30 and it's still pitch black out. It's crazy.
Yeah, but then you get out of work and there's sun still, and you can do things post work.
That is true. It's already kind of happening a little bit.
It's so exciting.
Yeah, but I'm talking about like the night itself when you lose an hour of sleep.
Yeah, that's gonna be
one of the most underrated worst days of the year.
Wow, I think we're gonna have to disagree on this one.
Because spring. It doesn't affect you at all that Sunday?
No, I'm an insomniac as is.
Okay.
But now also I have this idea that we're springing ahead and we're actually going to get spring, and I just have like really good positive vibes coming from.
Well, the weather would beg to differ right now, but
no, it's getting warmer.
I am interested though, in your experience. What happens? Say you're out late at 1 a.m. on daylight saving spring forward night when it jumps to 3.
So the hour of 2 a.m. doesn't exist.
Okay.
I
know. I'm saying but do things like stay
clocks
open?
Yes. No. Or
does it close at 1?
It closes.
At 1.
But in the fall, it falls back. Because when I worked at a bar in college, the fall was always the worst.
I always wondered that.
Because you then have an extra hour you have to work.
Okay.
But as a programmer right now, we have a blank hour in our schedule, and every single time this week I've had to make an update, I get anxiety that I've deleted something for that hour. And I keep reminding myself, no, it doesn't exist.
That's tough to deal with, yeah.
So
I'm always curious about that when that happens, especially like at this age when you might be awake at that time.
Yeah.
Like, do things stay open? Is it closed? Anyway, I have one more story about hours and time differences.
Give it to me.
Okay. So you may have heard of the BTN bus tour.
Yes.
It is
it's your shining moment.
Yeah, our summer tour that I've gone on the last 2 years to the 14 schools. We drive around to each campus, and that means we're hopping through a couple different time zones. So we always have to make sure, that we're on the right time because we have to make it to the bus. We don't want to get left behind, blah, blah, blah. A couple of years ago, my first one, we had to make a stop in Chicago for a night or so just to like regroup and get everything settled before we head to the other leg of the tour.
Fair.
For some reason, my phone wasn't updating the time automatically. You know how it's supposed to when you get in the time zone?
That's because you have a Samsung.
An Android, and I will not let you disparage it. It's I'm a Droid, lifetime Droid user. Anyway, it didn't set the clock back. I think we came from Eastern to Central. And we got back into town probably around noon, I think.
Okay.
I went home, and I literally lived a whole day not knowing that my clock hadn't set to the proper time. So the whole day I was an hour ahead and somehow didn't notice. Like I guess I didn't have any.
You had no plans.
No, but I did. I was out with friends and I looked and I'm like, it can't be 3:30 right now or something like that.
AM?
Yeah, I'm like, there's no way. And I looked at my friend's phone and it was a whole hour behind. And I literally lived a whole day of my life in the future, essentially, not knowing. And somehow, none of my obligations made me question what time it was, or I was never late to anything.
So pretty much you're saying you're Marty McFly from Back to the Future.
Exactly, but now I'm paranoid about it because now I'll check double every time I hop time zones or daylight savings. I just need to make sure that I'm on the right time.
I'll call you Sunday morning and tell you what time it is.
Don't do that because then you're probably awake way earlier than me.
Fact.
So please don't.
Well, at some point of the day, I'll let you know what's up.
Okay, so we're going to be heading into the Big Ten tournament with an hour less sleep. It's going to be a long week, a fun week.
Fun week, long week.
Fun week. There's a lot going on.
Love it. Starting with, my favorite thing to do on this is give a nice shout out to an ad of the week.
It's become like the most steady, reliable
because it's fun and I like it. I
agree.
But this week, we're going to give some love to our in-house marketing social media teams and Fallon because we work with them as well.
Okay.
And
they can give us like a little plug or something.
They're going to give us a plug?
No, they should.
I'm giving
plug for plug.
Plug for plug.
All right.
I'm just giving them love anyways. But everybody that works in the Loop in Chicago, all you Chicagoans, I know you all commute to the Loop. Unlike us, we live on an island in River North/West. But you got to go to the Daily Plaza and check out the cool social activation starting today, Monday, when you're hearing this, through Friday. And it's a very cool basketball hoop ordeal. It's very Instagrammable. It's all the Big Ten teams' logos and emblems will be there.
Yeah.
You can interact with it. I don't want to give it away because I want you to go see it, but it's really cool.
Well, that's the fun part of these events that kind of embed themselves in the city, right? There's opportunities to do some unique experiences, and I know Fallon's doing it, but I think our digital marketing team is involved as well. They're going to be amplifying it. I'm not sure to the degree that they're connected to it, but I've heard about it from them as well. And also, speaking of the kind of creative amplification of this tournament, our good friend and colleague Jordan J. His ad campaigns that he's been working so hard on, it's kind of an extra project he's taken on, have been seen around the city.
He's crushing it.
On the Brown Line, L stops.
Our resident gift guy has really been flexing his skill.
Yeah, he's his ad creative has been seen around, so we want to give him a shout out and get that in to our discussion here. But back to...
Yeah, everyone go check it out, and if you take a picture with it, hashtag March on BTN.
Yeah, back to the digital activations and the marketing activations. I have another story about this. So I didn't even mean for this to happen, but I saw some of these topics, and I knew I had to work them in. So a similar thing was done a couple years ago in Washington, D.C. There was an on-site activation with some props. And
props, vague, love it.
It's just a funny tie-in, and I think since it's been 2 years, I can make fun of it a little bit and bring up the issues that sprung up in D.C. So this particular one was, I think, a giant box of basketball somewhere in downtown D.C. with
clear boxes or like
a clear box that had a bunch of basketball, like hundreds.
Oh, how many?
And the hundreds, I don't know. The challenge was, though, people had to guess how many were in there.
Oh, God, these mind benders kill
And then
me.
they won. First of all, I'm terrible at stuff like that.
Yeah, I'm not a math person.
The jelly beans?
Yeah, absolutely not. Pass.
So people were supposed to guess how many balls were in the box. And then, like, they won pizza or something from some local DC place, the closer.
They should have done cupcakes, but anyways.
But it was done, like, through our main account, at Big Ten Network accounts DM. So like
follow it.
So if they won or if they were close enough to win, we were like DMing people.
Oh, fun.
Some of my coworkers that I was with were DMing people and trying to get them the pizza, and like I might be telling the story wrong or remembering it wrong, but I just remember it being funny, like having to DM these people and trying to arrange like their pizza reward. So I don't know if there's any pizza involved this year.
Alex, your social media guy / pizza delivery.
No, it wasn't
service.
me. It was people that I was working with, but they had to do it. And I just remember it being kind of funny and arranging the pizza delivery.
Oh, amazing. But yeah, everybody go check it out. It's going to be cool and a great way to start off our week. Everybody, welcome to the Big Ten Tournament
Daily
Week.
Plaza, you said?
Daily Plaza, in the Loop.
So that's one place in Chicago to check out. Colleen and I are here for everyone listening that might be attending the Big Ten Tournament. And we're here to serve you pretty much. Colleen, what are we doing?
Giving some recs on what to do if you're visiting or checking out the West Loop for the first time, because the United Center will be hosting the Big Ten.
Is the United Center in the West Loop?
It's a little bit west of the West Loop. It's on Madison. Just keep going west.
Okay, so United Center in Chicago, which is close to this neighborhood called the West Loop, which has a lot of things to do. And honestly, I'm expanding our tourist recommendations outside the West Loop because there's plenty of things to do in Chicago. It's a well-known city that is favorable with its public transportation. It's an easy city to get around.
We love CTA.
Yeah, easy city to get around. And there's going to be plenty of time, especially if your team loses, to, say you bought some all-session tickets and you got nothing to do. Plenty of time, plenty of things to do.
Chicago's like the Big Ten hub. So any Big Ten college, there's a bar for you.
Yeah, there's no shade to Indy, but there's a little more to do in the tourist attraction side of things in Chicago, despite the bad weather. So
hey, it's going to be a balmy 40.
Yeah, it's better than the last 2 weeks we've had here with single-digit sub-zero wind chills.
But if you're still cold, go get some coffee at some of my favorite places.
We're starting with food.
I'm starting with coffee because I love coffee.
Okay.
Go to Sawada Coffee. It's in Green Street Meats. And
West Loop. How far is that from United Center? Like a mile?
Maybe less than a mile.
Short Uber.
You could walk because it's going to be so nice out.
Exactly.
Or La Colombe is also, that's a chain, but it's still one of my faves.
La Colombe's the only company that can get me to shell out $5 for like a 8-ounce little can of its product.
Oh, you love those draft lattes.
They're like $5.
I'm just a Corsica girl.
Okay.
And my third favorite is Groundswell. That's on Madison. That one's the closest to the United Center.
Walkable. Great. All right, I'm gonna expand this to some general touristy things to do in Chicago, and this is like for me too because
Alex is a Lakeview resident.
I am. So I live near Wrigley Field. Don't show up at my door, please. But I feel like in the wintertime especially...
All of your huge fans.
I'm a bad Chicago local because I don't explore the city like I probably should. And when people come into town or like friends or relatives ask what's there to do in Chicago, it takes me a while to like think of a local angle to things, because there's the Bean, and there's Navy Pier, and there's all the generic stuff that they can get on.
You gotta give them some character.
Right, they can get on TripAdvisor. I'm trying to get the local angle, but then I always draw a blank, and I'm like...
You get a little stressed.
Yeah, and it stresses me out.
You're getting stressed out right now, I can tell.
Yeah, beads of sweat are starting to appear on my forehead.
BPM through the roof.
And this is especially a problem in winter, when I just kind of shut it down, and I stay in my little 4-mile radius from work to my house, and I'm in a lot of Ubers and Lyfts and on the L, and that's pretty much it. And I'll go to the same restaurants and bars, and I don't get out because I'm not going to the lake because it's too cold, and I'm not going to do outdoorsy things because it's just not that time of year. So this has been a good exercise for me to try and think of some things. So tourist attractions. Colleen, since I just talked for like 2 minutes about my own issues, I'll let you start with, do you have any tourist attractions that aren't coffee or restaurants?
My manager's a really big fan of the Wonder Museum, so that's a pretty Instagrammable location as well.
New?
It's newer. I think it opened up last fall.
So many people on Instagram have been posting from the Wonder Museum.
Yeah.
What is it?
It's just a museum that has all these cool, different artistic creations and visually appealing things to play with, and lots of...
It unlocks your inner wonder.
It does.
Okay.
But then also hit up Punchbowl Social. There's a lot of games. There's like bowling.
That's a bar,
and
restaurant near...
Yeah, and that's in the West Loop, right by one of my favorite restaurants, Abba, which is like Mediterranean food.
Okay.
Which is delicious.
All right. On top of your Wonder Museum recommendation, I'm going to recommend a park that is not, your tourist magnets like Millennium Park and Grant Park.
Which park?
But it's close by. It's Maggie Daley Park.
Oh.
I like Maggie Daley Park, and I feel like it's never crowded somehow. It's like you walk around it, and maybe I've just gone at lucky times when it's not that crowded, but...
Lucky. Like St. Patrick's Day this week, working it in.
Oh, yeah, that's another thing. It's like, the city's going to be crazy this week.
It's going to be nuts.
Oh, my goodness. This upcoming week. The 17th on Sunday.
Yeah.
They're dyeing the river Saturday.
Huge news. So
there's plenty of things to do, if your team loses, or if you just wanted to check out the city before you head over to the arena. I think the river dyeing is going to be Saturday morning. It's going to be crawling downtown with people in green falling over themselves probably. It's going to be nuts. But, again, Maggie Daley Park is like an urban kind of obstacle course type.
Fair.
Fun. I think that's part of the park. It's just a cool kind of urban oasis where there's a lot of green space, but the buildings are still close enough where there's a great view, and it's a fun place to go. Also, if you want to get off the beaten path... Colleen, I'm sure you're familiar with this place. It's a little north. It's in Lincoln Park. And it's a summer and winter spot. Chicago's a great rooftop city, especially in the summer. You can go to a lot of rooftop restaurants and bars.
Summer.
Yes, but this particular hotel in Lincoln Park has a winter cover on their rooftop, and that's the J. Parker Hotel. The
oh
Hotel
my gosh!
Lincoln.
Can I tell you something?
Yeah.
I've never been there.
You should be ashamed.
I know.
It's a great spot.
I've never
But
been.
it's better in winter because it's not as crowded and packed. So I was just there recently. Great view.
Fun. I mean, that's right by Renales, which is a Wisconsin favorite.
All right. Great bar and great restaurant. And it's a hotel as well, so maybe some people are even staying there. And yeah, it's just kind of off the beaten path of where people would maybe usually go on the Loop or downtown River North. It's just a couple miles north in Lincoln Park, and if the zoo was open, which I don't think it is yet, it'd be a great place to go before that.
We're really jumping the gun here.
I know, it's too bad. Yeah, I forgot all about St. Patrick's Day. It's going to be nuts.
Yeah, you better wear green or else you'll get pinched.
I'm trying to think if I have like a green dress shirt because I'll probably be dressed up a little bit.
On Saturday?
Yeah.
I'll be
at the game.
Yeah.
Yeah. What are you doing for St. Patrick's Day?
My girlfriends and I have a nice little brunch. And
Fun.
because I have friends coming in from out of town. So we're going to go take them to the river because it's going to be green and that's cool.
That'll be fun.
And then we have a party to attend and kind of playing it by ear.
Well, hopefully it warms up.
I know.
I'm just realizing like this job gives me major FOMO on St. Patrick's Day on most days because there's always something going on. It's like either Selection Sunday or it's around this March Madness time where I can't really celebrate St. Patrick's Day like the rest of my peers. So, but
Good
you know
thing
what?
the
That's
tournament's
okay.
going to be
I'm not
nuts
complaining.
and fun.
Not complaining. Yeah, it'll be fun. Saturday's going to be awesome, just with the St. Patrick's Day vibe. And semifinal Saturday is one of the best days of sports all year. Two awesome games will be taking place at the UC. So it'll be great. Colleen, I need to get some restaurant recommendations from you now. So we've done kind of the bars, museums, rooftops.
Are we sticking to West Loop neighborhoods?
Don't have to, but if they're in there,
I mean,
better.
one of my favorite places is La Josie. It's super good Mexican food. Right across the street from Au Cheval, known for their burger.
I was going to say Au Cheval.
But I would say Mott Street Burger is my favorite. So if you have time to get to Mott Street or Mini Mott, you got to check it out.
You mentioned one of mine, Au Cheval is regularly on the list of like best burgers in the city. It's a really small, unique place. Like you might have to wait, but luckily there's plenty of other establishments around that you can wait in while your table at Au Cheval is opening up. It's just a really unique ambiance in there, and you get a great burger. So that's going to be a must visit if you're in town. And we can't talk about Chicago without pizza. I don't know if you have any pizza places.
So I'm gluten-free, so I'm going to tap you in for this one. Unless you want my gluten-free Rex, but that's not as fun.
I'll handle the gluten-infused pizza Rex. And I'm going to go a little outside the norm here. I know visitors to the city or even some regulars in the city, you got your Giordano's, your Lou Malnati's, even your Pequod's. I like all those places, but I'm going to recommend a place that is sort of not on the west side of the city, but not far from United Center. It's a few miles away. It's called Art of Pizza. I don't know if you've heard of it.
That sounds fun.
Have you heard of Art of Pizza? It's really good. I don't know if it has more than one location, but the one I go to is on Ashland Avenue, and it has some of the most underrated slices in the city. It's got deep dish stuffed, and you can get them by the slice, which is a little unique, I think.
Okay.
I don't know how many places you can do that.
This is like West Side, like Ukrainian Village? Like,
No. It's Lincoln Park still, but it's like West Lakeview-ish.
Okay.
So it's kind of on that border. It's just not far from the United Center. You can get right on Ashland and go right up. So
also not far from the United Center, Yuzu Sushi is amazing.
Yuzu Sushi.
For those people that also don't want to have gluten. But hey.
Okay. I'm a little worried because I love sushi, and I've been having the last couple times I've had sushi, I've kind of gotten sick. So I'm hoping it's just a fluke.
I hope it's a fluke as well.
I don't want to go the rest of my life without sushi.
Have you been eating at questionable locations?
Nope. So I hope I'm not developing like an intolerance.
I know. Mercury is your friend, not your enemy.
Yeah. So I'll keep the audience updated on that.
Thoughts and prayers for you.
Thank you. T's and P's. All right. Colleen, anything else before we get into one of those busy weeks of the year here?
Well, you can't not have dessert also while you're here. So you must hit up Cone. That's in the West Loop. It's ice cream. It's really good.
Cone.
Bombo Bar. Hot chocolates and donuts and very cool things like that.
Okay.
Super good.
Awesome. I need to go to West Loop more.
Yeah.
I'm actually going to write these down because I'm going to
listen to this back.
I'm going to have an expense account and go to places that I don't usually go to. So
fun.
I'm going to hit some of these places up.
You got to abuse it.
Hopefully some of our listeners are there. They don't know what we look like, though.
That's true.
So
they could hear our voice. They would know by the sound of my voice.
That's happened to me before where I had a guest on one of these podcasts, Richard Deitch, who I met this is about a year ago. I met in a coffee shop in Brooklyn to do the interview, and I listened to his podcast all the time, the sports media podcast that he does. And when I got there first, and I knew he was there because I heard his voice when he ordered. It was so distinctive, and I was like, yep, that's him. He's here.
Oh, that's nuts.
I know. So that's going to happen to us. We're going to be talking, and all our hordes of fans will.
Hordes. Mom and Dad, that's you.
All right, so I think we've set a record on this one.
All right,
30 minutes.
Yeah. We're going to wrap it up here.
We've been rambling on, but...
Everybody enjoy the week of basketball.
Had to get all our recs in.
Yeah, we had to get a ton of recs in. Go check out the activation in Daly Plaza.
Cool. Good plug. I was trying to think of a plug that I could insert, but there's really nothing.
Just Alex needs a coffee.
Enjoy the games. Have fun, everybody.
Be safe.
And we'll get back at you probably post-Selection Sunday. We'll talk NCAA Tournament, March Madness, and maybe do some bracket picks.
Oh, for sure going to have some picks.
Maybe we should do some brackets with, like, not basketball, but, like, some...
I'm in on that.
All right. We'll develop this. We'll
get excited, everyone. But we'll talk to you next time.
All right, see ya. All right, thanks once again to my guests. It was a lot of fun. Can't wait for the Big Ten tournament this week. It should be a hell of a tournament just with the top-to-bottom competitiveness of the league. I know it's talked about all the time. If you've watched Big Ten basketball this year, it's kind of the talking point, but it's true. It's going to be a blast. Hope you can make it to Chicago for some of the games, and if not, tune to BTN for the first 10 games of the tournament. And hopefully, this week rivals and matches what we saw last year in New York, because that was an awesome tournament, and hopefully it carries some momentum for the conference into the NCAAs. So thanks again to my guests. Thanks to everyone for listening. Thanks to my producers for helping out, Wes White, Julie Bronder, and we will talk to you next time as we get deeper into March Madness here on the Take 10 podcast.